In the year 2024, I earned an additional $153,000 on the side of my full-time job as a high school choir teacher. In this podcast episode, I'm going to share with you kind of my origin story when it comes to the various side hustles that I have, how I grew them into what they are today, and how the birth of this podcast will hopefully inspire and motivate you to do the same. This is Rich Teachers with Becky Park. So I'm going to start by breaking down the numbers for you because I think it's important that you understand how I got to 153,000, and that's an approximate number. It could be off by a few $1,000s here or there. I'm going to start with kind of the things that earn me the least amount of money and go into the things that earn me the most amount of money. And again, this is just for the year 2024. I really kind of started my side hustle, if you will, in December of 2017, and I'll talk to you a little bit too later on about what those numbers looked like at the very beginning versus what they are now. So in the year 2024, I would say I earned around $7,000 in sponsorships, or even there was this one-off experience that I had where I got to basically create a commercial for a company. But when you add up the money that different companies or brands paid me in order to talk about their products on my YouTube channel, then that comes out to about $7,000. A few of those companies offered me maybe like $300 to $500. A few of those companies actually offered me, $2,000 to $3,000. It really varies depending on what those sponsorships look like. I had some sponsorships that span the length of 2 or 3 videos, and then I had some one-off opportunities. And like I said, I had an experience where I got to create a commercial for a company, and they paid me $3,000 to do that. So somewhere in that range of $7,000. I've also been sent a ton of free product or been given the opportunity to use softwares and Chrome extensions for free over the years. I didn't include that amount because I really just wanted to give you an idea of how much extra income hit my bank account. And while free products is amazing, that's not necessarily income hitting my bank account. The next side hustle that we'll talk about is actually the side hustle that started all side hustles, and that is reselling. I started reselling used clothing that both my husband and I didn't wear anymore in December of 2017 and have since grown that into what it is today. And just from reselling used clothing online, I was able to earn, again, around $23,000 in the year of 2024, and that is in net profits. The next source of income from 2024, the next side hustle, is YouTube. I started a YouTube channel maybe a year and a half after I started reselling, just because I wanted to document the journey and I wanted to share what it looked like for other people who might be interested, especially sharing it from the perspective of only reselling part-time because I always had my full-time teaching gig. And so from YouTube, I earned another $23,319. It was easy for me to be exact with YouTube because YouTube does give you that information in their analytics page. But where I made the majority of my income by far in the year 2024 was in the form of affiliate marketing. Now, I have a few companies that I am an affiliate for, and for the majority of those affiliates, it is a continuity affiliate program, which means that as long as the person who signs up using my link sticks with that company, because it's a subscription-based, product that they're purchasing, I receive a small commission from that person month after month after month. And just from affiliate marketing in the year 2024, again, this is an approximate number, but between about 3 or 4 different companies that I am an affiliate for, I made an additional $100,000. So, the first side hustle that I got into in 2017 was reselling. And out of the 4 side hustles, I guess if that's what you want to call all of them, there was sponsorships, there was YouTube, there was reselling, there was affiliate marketing. Reselling actually makes me the second lowest amount of income, but that's what kickstarted everything. And reselling is what the other side hustles are centered around. Without reselling, I wouldn't have that YouTube channel. And without my YouTube channel, I wouldn't have the ability to take on sponsors or to do affiliate marketing in the way that I have been doing and have found a lot of success with. And so even though reselling itself doesn't actually make as much income as some some of those other income streams, it is definitely the reason why I'm able to make this episode and say that in the year 2024, I made $153,000 extra on the side of teaching. But let's take it back a little bit and let's talk about what it was like right before I fell into these different side hustles. Both my husband and I are teachers. I am a high school choir teacher. My husband teaches first grade. We both have our master's degrees. I actually have two master's degrees. One is in educational policy and the other one is in music education. But even with two teaching salaries, there was a time in our lives when we were living paycheck to paycheck. And I think when it got really tough is when we moved. We lived in a small starter home when we first got married, and it was a great home, but we just had our first kid. We knew we would probably have more kids, and our parents lived close by. They liked to come and visit often, and our starter home just didn't really have the space that we needed. So we found this great house. It was only like 10, 15 minutes away from our original home, but we found this great house with a lot more space. It was a tiny bit out of our budget. It was just like right outside of where we were comfortable. And I convinced my husband, I had this romantic notion that we could make it work, that it was okay to, tighten the purse strings a little bit just for a couple years or so, that we could make it work. And so we got the house. It was one of those great situations where it was probably one of the cheapest houses in the neighborhood. It was a great established neighborhood, and we had the ability to get it at a low price because it needed a lot of work. So not only did we purchase a home with a mortgage that was a little outside of our comfort zone, we really did have to do stuff in terms of renovations from the get-go. So not only did we have this big purchase where we had to put money down on this new home, but we also had to spend a lot of money on renovations. And we quickly found ourselves in a position where we were looking at our bank account and we were like, oh my gosh, we may not be able to pay our mortgage next month and also pay for things like our daughter's daycare. And there were just so many expenses. And all of a sudden, what had seemed like this romantic, oh, we're going to just get by, it stopped being fun really fast. We fought a lot more. We were stressed out a lot more. We were a lot more anxious, especially my husband, because he is a numbers guy and he would look at that bank account every day and he would look at the amount that he knew would come in from our salaries. And he knew that the math wasn't mathing. So he was very stressed out. We actually borrowed a good amount of money from a friend of his who owned his own business. And his friend was so gracious and told us to take all the time that we needed to pay him back. But being in debt, whether it is to the bank, whether it is to a friend of yours, it's an uncomfortable place to be. And that's where we were for a year or two. So that was the financial state of things. We were in a house that we couldn't really afford. We weren't able to go on vacations. We weren't able to buy gifts for our families. It was just really tight and really hard for a good chunk of time. I remember just trying to find different ways to make money on the side to help supplement our income. I'm a high school choir teacher. I grew up playing piano and singing, and so I actually started giving private voice and piano lessons on the side, and that was decent income, but to be honest with you, I didn't really enjoy trading my time for money, and there weren't enough hours in the day for me to earn the amount that we needed in order to pay off this debt. I remember in a moment of almost like pure desperation, I collected a bunch of stuff from my closet and my husband's closet and took it to Plato's Closet. I had, sold clothes to Plato's Closet before, and I knew that the payouts were not amazing, but I took a lot of like Banana Republic, J. Crew. Some of the stuff was new with tags, just things that we weren't really wearing anymore or didn't fit us. A lot of more career-oriented pieces, things that we wore as teachers. I took them to Plato's. And I remember them looking through our items and calling me up to the counter and being like, we can take 2 of these items and offer you a payout of like $3.48 or something, and the rest of this stuff we don't want. And I was just like, that's it? That's all you want for this great stuff? So I don't even think I ended up taking the payout out of pride, but I went home. I looked at the clothes and I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. There has to be a way that I can actually sell really great clothes that I have that I just don't want anymore to somebody else. I did a quick Google search and I came across a reselling platform called Poshmark. And that name stuck out to me because my brother months ago had mentioned it to me in passing. He showed it to me because he was showing me like a random Gucci belt or something, a pre-owned Gucci belt that someone was selling for, a quarter of what it retailed for. So I remember like him telling me about Poshmark, and that made it legitimate enough for me to just go ahead and try it. I picked out some of the things that I had tried selling to Plato's Closet. I followed the instructions that I saw on Poshmark. I took the best pictures that I could of the items. I used like natural light from my window. I tried to put little accessories or like flowers with each article of clothing, anything I could do to make it look pretty and stand out. And I remember as I was posting these things to Poshmark, I just had this gut feeling like this could really be something. And as I was listing things to Poshmark, I also tried to do some extra research on the side. I remember searching on Google, how can you sell items on Poshmark? Or like, how can you sell more items on Poshmark? And I would keep getting hits that sent me to YouTube. I, at that time, wasn't really someone who watched a lot of YouTube. I think I really only watched YouTube to watch performances from my favorite artists or interviews. I didn't really think of YouTube as a place to go to learn how to do things. I'm a pretty fast reader, so I always prefer to just find a website with instructions on how to do something. But I kept getting directed to YouTube because there were people on YouTube who were making videos about topics like how to sell your clothing on Poshmark. So I remember finally caving in, watching a video or two, and realizing that there were some YouTubers who were making a full-time income selling used clothing on Poshmark, because not only were they selling their own items the way that I was trying to do, but they quickly would run out of their own items to sell, and they would actually go to places like thrift stores and garage sales and anywhere else where they could find clothing for cheap, and they would sell that clothing on Poshmark. So I started watching as much of this kind of content as I could find on YouTube and really getting excited. I mean, I remember turning to my husband and being like, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is what we're going to do. This is how I'm going to make some extra money. And he looked at me like I was crazy because I am not immune to delusions of grandeur. I like to dream big and think big. In fact, he'll often say to me, because I'm only 5 feet tall, he'll say, "You're such a little girl with big dreams." And I really am. When I dream big. And I was like, Mikey, this is it. Like, this is how we're going to make some extra money. So I had all of this clothes listed. 2 weeks later, I sold my first item on Poshmark. It was a pair of my husband's shoes. It wasn't even something of mine, but I sold a pair of my husband's shoes. And at that point, I was hooked. Any spare moment that I had, I dedicated to growing my Poshmark closet, trying to list as many items as I could. And slowly the sales started increasing. And I got to the point where I sold through the majority of the things that I had listed from my own home. And my husband and I went to the thrift store for the very first time. I still remember we went to a Salvation Army in my town. I thought I was going to find Chanel and Louis Vuitton and Lululemon and just all these amazing brands right off the bat, because that's what it sounded like people were doing on YouTube. I made a lot of purchasing errors, bought lots of things that nobody actually wanted, but it was so exciting. And here we are like 7 years later, and I'm still reselling. I've expanded to reselling on a number of various platforms. And in 2019, I was able to add YouTube to the mix. Now, the reason I got into YouTube is because, like I explained earlier, I realized that there were a lot of people on YouTube teaching people how to resell. But the majority of those people I found were full-time resellers. These were people who didn't have other jobs. Their only job was selling clothing online and making YouTube content about it. And while they were amazing people to learn from, and I am forever indebted to them for all of the knowledge and information that they gave me, sometimes it would make me feel bad about myself because they would share their numbers and they would be like, oh, this week I made this much money. And I'd be like, well, I didn't get anywhere close to that. And oftentimes I forgot that, it's silly for me to compare myself to them when they're able to invest all of their time to reselling. And I'm only able to invest, a handful of hours a week to it because of my full-time teaching gig and because of the fact that I was also a mom to a young child. And I remember oftentimes wishing that there were really good examples on YouTube of people who were reselling part-time. And I thought to myself, maybe that could be me. Another place where I was finding a lot of really great information about reselling was on Instagram. And I was slowly growing my Instagram following. I shared as many tips as I could as I learned them along the way. And people especially seemed to appreciate educational content from me. They didn't really care about my funny content or, tips where I bragged about my numbers. But really what they cared about was when I shared tips and tricks and information with them. But probably around the time that I had around 7,000 to 8,000 followers on Instagram, a friend of mine who lives in town stumbled across my reselling Instagram. I had a separate Instagram page for that. And he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you were doing all of this reselling stuff and you've got a pretty good following. What's the long game here? What is your plan for the foreseeable future? And I said, I don't really know. I'm just going to ride this as long as I can. What I'd really like to do is create a YouTube channel about all of this, but I'll probably wait till I have about 10,000 followers on Instagram, and then I'll hopefully bring them all over to YouTube. And he was like, that is not how it works. He was like, if you want to start a YouTube channel, you should have started one yesterday. And he said, listen, I'll help you get started, because he was like a freelancing videographer at the time, and he did a lot of graphic design work, just a creative. He said, I'll help you film, I'll edit your videos, I'll get them up on YouTube. I'm in the business of helping people help themselves. And so he came over, he filmed 3 videos for me right off the bat. He edited them. He created my little trailer, if you will, for my videos that I use for the first 3 or 4 years of my channel. He created my YouTube artwork. He did everything. He helped me get the start that I needed. And I uploaded my videos. And he was right in that a very small fraction of my Instagram audience followed me over to YouTube, but I was able to quickly grow a following on YouTube of just YouTube viewers. After those first 3 videos, however, my friend told me, hey, so I actually can't keep doing this for you because I also have to pay my own bills and I have to, do all these things, because he was doing all of this for me pro bono. So I was very quickly put in a position where I had to figure out YouTube all by myself. He had started it so strong, and then I was left with my iPhone and my super old MacBook, and I just had to figure out how to edit and upload YouTube videos. And there were a few sleepless nights, I'm not going to lie, but I was determined to keep it going because I just, again, had a hunch that this could be something. So that was the start of my YouTube journey. And in upcoming episodes, I'll definitely dive a little bit more into YouTube and what it takes to be a content creator and all of the lessons that I've learned along the way. But once I got started on YouTube and once I started building a loyal following over there, and to be quite honest with you, it only took me 4 to 8 months to get monetized. It was fairly quick. And I think it's mainly because my initial thought that YouTube could use a part-time reseller, I was onto something. A lot of people were excited to come across someone on YouTube who was speaking about reselling from a part-time perspective. But I was able to find an audience fairly quickly. And as I shared about the different tools and resources that I used on a daily basis for my reselling business, that's when I accidentally fell into affiliate marketing. There was one product in particular. It's a Chrome extension. And this product basically helps you do a pretty menial task in the world of reselling in a much faster way. And I remember when I found this product, I just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. It literally cut down the amount of time it took to do this task by half, if not more. So I evangelized about this product in basically every single video from that point forward, just because it truly was a product that I used all the time. And people would keep asking, what is it? How can I use it? Where's the link to it? And so I would link to it in my description. And finally, that company reached out and they were like, holy cow, lady, we are getting so many people to purchase our product from us because of you. let's partner together. We have an affiliate program that we'd love for you to try out, and let's make a video together. Like, we can be on your channel, we can do X, Y, and Z. And there have been years where just this one company alone has sent me over $100,000 in affiliate marketing payouts. It's crazy. To be honest, for the past year or so, my earnings have started to come down as different competitors have entered the market, but it is still just one of the most lucrative things that I didn't even know was possible. But again, I just kind of accidentally fell into because of my YouTube channel and because I was just so honestly and openly sharing about this product that I loved. And since then, I have about 3 other companies that I've added to my repertoire, if you will, of affiliate marketing that I also incorporate in my videos. None of them are as lucrative as this first product, but still you add the commission from those 4 companies on a monthly basis, and it comes out to what honestly seems like an obscene amount of money. Now, to get into my teaching really quickly, being a high school choir teacher is a pretty time-intensive job. I will say I probably have a lot less work outside of the classroom than perhaps like an English teacher who has to bring home all these essays and grade them. You know, I'm not grading all these worksheets or tests like a math teacher would, but it is very time intensive in that I have before school rehearsals with my a cappella group. We have after school performances. We have a lot of, events and performances on the weekends. Just even thinking about the semester to come, I've got a Saturday rehearsal that's 4 hours long with my a cappella group. We have competition over a weekend in February. I'm going on a conference with my students who qualified for All-State Choir. It's like a 2-night event in a town an hour and a half away. So while there isn't as much busy work, I don't know if that's what you want to call grading and stuff, but while there isn't as much of that, there is a lot of other stuff that takes up my time. And one of the things that I wanted to be really careful of when I started building up and scaling my various side hustles, I wanted to make sure that I was still showing up as my best in the classroom. I wanted to make sure that I was giving my best to my students because being a teacher is such a huge part of who I am and what I believe I was created to do. So if you think that this podcast is going to teach you how to just get by as a teacher so you can spend all of your time and energy on your side hustle, this is not that podcast, because my hope is that you continue to show up as the best version of yourself in your classroom and continue to be excellent. And I'm going to talk about why that's important here in a little bit. But one anecdote about my teaching is that a business teacher colleague of mine at my high school, she reached out and asked if I would be willing to speak to her class, her intro to business class, I think it was, about my side hustles. And I said, absolutely. So I went in and I talked to them about a lot of the same things that I already talked to you about in this episode. And one of the kids asked me point blank, so how much money do you make in a year? And I gave him a ballpark number, and he was like, oh my gosh, so teaching is your side hustle? And I was like, money-wise, yes, but I think the term side hustle literally is defined as a way to earn income on the side of your full-time job, and where I put my full-time hours is in teaching. I'm just able to earn that kind of money with very minimal time. So teaching really isn't my side hustle because it takes up so much of my time, but with side hustle hours, I'm able to make more than double the amount that I earn as a teacher, which is a topic that we can get into in a future episode because that has to be its own topic, just how little teachers are paid despite what an important job it is that we are doing within society. But despite the fact that I am making so much more money from my side hustles than I am from my teaching job, on this podcast, I want to really stress the importance of maintaining professionalism and being the best teacher that you can be in your classroom while forming and growing and scaling your side hustle. And that's for a number of reasons. For me personally, while I am a big dreamer, I want to be smart, I don't want to put myself and my family in financial jeopardy. And furthermore, my husband would never allow it. I really had to prove to him that this was something that I could sustain while maintaining my teaching job. Because also with the teaching job comes things like insurance, comes things like retirement, and those are important things that you don't get with the side hustle. You can add those things on, but why give up those things if you're able to do both at the same time? And furthermore, I would say because of the fact that I am good at my job, and I don't want it to sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but I do think that I'm a good teacher. I think that I show up and give my best every day and am always trying to improve as a teacher for my students. And I still maintain really wonderful relationships with students even after they graduate. I've had many students go on to become music teachers themselves. So I feel like I'm doing the best job that I possibly can in the classroom. And another reason why that's important is because sometimes you can use the fact that you are an asset to your school building to help leverage yourself into better situations. That's something that I have done 2 times now. And again, this will be a future podcast episode where I dive a little deeper into this, but there have been 2 times where I almost quit my teaching job. And that was because of a lot of voices that I was hearing of people saying things to me like, hey, you really should devote all of your time and energy to your reselling business because you can make so much more money if you're able to spend your time there and not at school. And there were 2 times. Once I actually wrote a letter of resignation and gave it to my superintendent and my building principal. I had actually told my students that I wouldn't be returning the next year, but I don't know if you feel this way, the same way that I do at the end of the school year, but the end of the school year is like the spring concert and everyone gets super emotional. Like you're getting all these wonderful cards and meaningful gifts from kids, thanking you for changing their lives and stuff. And I remember reaching back out to my superintendent and my principal and being like, okay, is it all right with you if I rescind my letter of resignation? And my superintendent was like, thank God. Like, I didn't want to pressure you to stay, but I'm so thankful you're going to be back next year. And please let us know what we can do to make the job easier, da 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 da. And one of the conditions that I stated when I asked to rescind my letter of resignation was to be relieved of my duty as music director for all future musical theater productions. At my high school, we do 2 musicals a year, and I had been the musical director up until that point, which is just hours upon hours upon hours of rehearsals. And yes, there was a stipend attached to that, but it really came out to like dollars an hour, pennies an hour, really. And so she was like, absolutely, anything that you need, like any way we can support you and your family, please let us know. And I think the only reason they responded like that and let me come back, if you will, on my own terms is because I had proven myself an asset to the district, to the building, and I was a good teacher. The second time that I was close to quitting, I requested a meeting with my principal, and I was just very honest with him. He was brand new to the building. I think it was the end of his first year, but I said, listen, I don't know what to do because I'm at a crossroads. I love teaching, but I have this side hustle that nets me more than double the amount that I earn as a teacher. And he was like, I was kind of worried that that's what this conversation was going to be about. This is why a lot of people ask to meet with me at the end of the year, is to tell me that they're not going to be returning next year. And he said, you just let me know what we can do to keep you. We really want to keep you. And we were able to come up with something that allowed me to continue to do both. So there are 2 things that I am going to stress throughout the run of my podcast. One of those things is I do wholeheartedly believe that you can teach and maintain a side hustle that earns you life-changing income. I think you can do both. You just have to be really smart about how you do both of those things. This is not the podcast that's going to bully you into quitting your teaching job so that you can focus on your side hustle. I don't think that has to be the goal. I think a lot of people believe that's when you've made it, but at this moment in time, I can't imagine not being a teacher. And that's not to say that this is going to be my life forever, But for the time being, I know that I'm supposed to stay in the classroom. I know that I'm supposed to do both simultaneously. And that's not to say that if you are to grow your side hustle into something huge and amazing, that you're wrong for leaving your teaching job. You're never going to hear me say that on this podcast either. And in fact, I will have on guests who have done just that, who have grown their side hustles into something that is their dream job, and they therefore leave the teaching field. But I just want you to understand that I love teaching. I love teachers, and I think the world needs more good teachers. And my goal is to teach you how to do both at the same time. And the second thing that I'm always going to stress on this podcast is I do believe you should do the best job that you can in the classroom. And if the things happening over here with your side hustle are getting in the way of that, then you do need to make some changes, because I don't think that it's fair to your students or to your school building for you not to give your best to your school. But the main purpose of this podcast, Rich Teachers, is this. I want to help you, whether it is helping you figure out what kind of side hustle you want to create, whether it's helping you scale your side hustle into something that actually makes you good money. I want to be someone who's in your corner, motivating and inspiring you to do things that maybe you didn't even know you were capable of. And while I do feel like I have a wealth of my own experiences to draw from and to teach from, I'm also going to be bringing on a lot of other teacher entrepreneurs, other teachers who have grown their side hustles into enterprises that make what I have accomplished look like child's play. And I'm also going to bring on other professionals that may not be teachers, but can speak to more the business side of things or the time management piece of things. So if you're ready to supplement your teaching income, if you're ready to make life-changing money while you change the lives of the children in your classroom, subscribe to this podcast and subscribe to my email list. I'll have all of that information down in the description below or in the show notes, so that you're first to know about any live workshops that I have, or just any other opportunities to help you grow as a teacher with a side hustle. For some of you, the story of how I was able to earn $153,000 of additional income in the year 2024 may simply seem out of reach, but I truly believe that there is a way for you to create these income opportunities for yourself as well. To end, I just wanted to say, in case you don't hear it enough, thank you for being a teacher. Thank you for changing the lives of the children in your classroom. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next one.